He set his bags down in the spare room, my painting space, and looked around. His eyes went over my paintings, the stacks of canvases, the jars of brushes. I felt a little shy, like he was seeing a private part of me. "This is a great space," he said, turning to me. "You're a painter?" "I dabble," I said a little fast. "It's mostly a hobby." He nodded, looking back at the landscape on the easel. "You're very talented. This light is incredible." Praise from a famous photographer about my light felt big. "Thank you," I said, really happy. "Well, make yourself comfy. The bathroom is right across the hall. Let me know if you need anything." "Thanks, Eleanor. I appreciate it." He ran a hand through his hair. "I should probably get some work done. I'm on a deadline." "Of course. I'll be downstairs if you need me. I usually eat dinner around 7. You're welcome to join, but no pressure if you're busy or want your own food. Dinner sounds great if it's not too much trouble." "Not at all," I smiled. "See you later." Then I went back downstairs, my mind buzzing. He was different, quieter than I'd thought, but there was a strong focus about him, an energy, and those eyes, they really seemed to see everything. My quiet evening was turning into something else. I found myself wondering what work he was doing, what pictures were in that big camera case. The smell of pine trees and faraway campfires hung in the air, a little reminder that my usual life rhythm had hit a surprise note. The next couple of hours were a mix of my normal stuff and looking forward to dinner. I made a simple chicken and roasted veggies meal, something I hoped anyone would like. All the while, I could hear soft sounds from upstairs, the quiet steps, sometimes a click from his laptop or camera stuff. It wasn't bothering me, but I knew he was there, a new person in my house, which had been just me for so long. When I called him for dinner, he came down right away. He'd changed into a fresh shirt, and his hair was a bit damp, like he'd washed his face. He looked tired, but less stressed than when he got here. "This smells wonderful, Eleanor," he said as he sat at my small kitchen table. It felt a little strange sharing this spot I usually had alone. "Thank you. It's nothing fancy. We ate in a comfy, quiet for a few minutes. I'm not one for talking just to talk, and it seemed Michael wasn't either. But it wasn't awkward, it was nice, like being with a friend. So I started finally. "Sarah says you're working on a show." He nodded, sipping water. "Yeah, it's a look back at my work, mostly from the last 15 years. It's a lot to sort through. Picking the pieces, getting them ready. 15 years of traveling and taking photos, that's amazing." I could only imagine the places he'd seen, the stories in his pictures. "Where has your work taken you mostly?" He paused, with a faraway look in his eyes. "A lot of out-of-the-way spots, the Andes, the Himalayas, the Australian outback. I'm drawn to places that feel wild and the people who live there." "It sounds exciting and tough." "It is," he said, "but so worth it. There's a real truth in those places, in the people, a simple connection to the earth that most of us have lost. I think." His words hit home with me. My paintings were often trying to catch that same feeling, but closer to home, like how light hits the ocean or the old quiet of a forest. "I think I get what you mean," I said softly. He looked at me, a direct look that made me feel really seen. "I thought you might," he said. His gaze went to my hands, then back to my face. "Sarah mentioned you lost your husband a few years ago. Mark, was it?" I was surprised for a second. Sarah doesn't usually share personal stuff without asking, but this was her brother. "Yes," I said, my voice a little tighter. "Mark, it was 5 years ago." "I'm sorry," he said simply. There was no pity, just a quiet nod. "That must have been hard." "It was," I agreed. "It still is sometimes. This house can feel very empty. I hadn't meant to say that last part, it just came out. He nodded slowly. Emptiness has a way of making itself known. There was a real meaning in his words, like he understood more than just the surface. We talked a bit more after that, about his travels, the changing seasons here in New England, books we'd read. It was easy, not forced. He was a good listener, and when he talked, he picked his words carefully. As we cleared the dishes, he said, "Thank you again for dinner, Eleanor, and for the room. I promise I'll be as quiet as possible. It's really no trouble, Michael. And please don't feel like you have to sneak around. It's nice to have company, actually." It was true. The starting worry had gone away, replaced by a careful comfort. He gave me another slow smile. "Good night, Eleanor." "Good night, Michael." I listened to his steps going up the stairs. The house felt quiet again, but a different kind of quiet, not empty, but with a soft buzz of something new. I found myself looking forward to the next few weeks, a feeling that surprised me. The man upstairs was a bit of a mystery, but a welcome one. My best friend's brother, who knew he'd bring such a surprise change to my neat world just by needing a place to stay. The smell of pine trees and faraway campfires seemed stronger now, mixing with the usual smells of my home. The days after that got into a new routine. Michael kept his word. He was super thoughtful. Most of the day he'd be in his room, my painting space, working, I guess. I'd hear soft sounds, a keyboard click, sometimes a quiet voice if he was on a call. He'd come out for coffee in the mornings and we'd say a few nice things. He made his own breakfast, usually toast and fruit, and cleaned up after himself perfectly. Evenings were when we hung out most. He'd join me for dinner a lot, and our talk started to get deeper, beyond just polite chat. He asked about my painting, and I showed him some finished ones. A bit shy at first. He had a great eye, like I expected. He didn't just say nice things, he pointed out details, like how I showed a shadow or the feeling in a brushstroke. It was smart and made me feel good. "You have a real gift, Eleanor," he said one evening, looking at a small watercolor of a winter barn I really liked. "There's a quiet strength in your work, a sense of place." "Thank you, Michael. That means a lot coming from you." He told me more about his work, too, about the hard parts of catching the heart of a place or person in one photo. He talked about waiting hours for the right light, the right moment. He described the sharp beauty of a desert sunrise, the big power of a storm at sea, the strong spirit in people's eyes who had little stuff but a lot of heart. His stories were so interesting. They painted pictures in my head. I realized he wasn't just a photographer. He was a storyteller with photos instead of words. Sometimes after dinner, if he wasn't too tired or busy, we'd sit in the living room. I'd read or draw a little in a notebook, and he'd have his laptop, looking through pictures. Once in a while, he'd turn the screen to me. "What do you think of this one?" he'd ask, showing an amazing black and white photo of an old woman with a face like a map of her life, or a huge landscape that went on forever. His photos were strong. They weren't just pretty. They had a soul. They made you feel something. Sharing them with me, asking what I thought, felt close, like a peek into his world. His passion. I learned he was a private guy, not sneaky, but someone who liked being alone and thinking. He didn't talk much about his personal life, like old relationships. I respected that I wasn't nosy, but I sensed a loneliness in him, a sadness that matched mine sometimes. Maybe it was from his job, always watching, always moving, or maybe something deeper. One afternoon, about a week in, I was having trouble with part of my Maine coast painting. The waves hitting the rocks, the spray, the wild energy, I couldn't get it right. I must have sighed out loud because soon there was a soft knock on my open studio door. He was working in his room, but the door to my painting area was open a bit. Michael stood there, looking unsure. Sorry to bother you. Everything okay? The old mug with a chip in it felt nice and warm in my hands as I looked out the kitchen window. Wow, autumn in New England is really special, you know? The maple trees across the street were like a big fire of red and gold colors, all against a super blue sky that almost made my eyes hurt. It was one of those quiet Tuesday mornings where the only noise was the tick-tock from the big grandfather clock in the hall. That sound has been part of my life in this house for the last 20 years. Oh, I'm Eleanor, by the way, and I guess you could say my days had gotten into a comfy, easy routine. Not a bad one, just like an old favorite song where you know every word. The phone rang, and its loud ring cut right through the peace. I sighed and put the mug down on the fancy granite countertop, the one I finally treated myself to after the kids went off to college. Hello? Ellie, darling. It's Sarah. Sarah, my best friend since we were little kids in kindergarten. Her voice was always a bit too loud and full of energy, but it was a cozy sound I knew well. Sarah, what's going on? Don't tell me you picked up another stray cat. She laughed, a happy, bubbly laugh. Not this week. Listen, I have a big favor to ask, really big, and you're the only one I can think of. I leaned against the counter. Okay, I'm listening. As long as it doesn't mean getting someone out of jail or hiding a body. Nothing that wild, I promise. It's about Michael. Michael, Sarah's younger brother. I hadn't seen him in. Gosh, it must have been almost 10 years. He was kind of a traveler, a photographer always chasing the perfect picture in some faraway spot. Last I heard, he was somewhere in South America. He was about 10 years younger than Sarah and me, so that put him in his late 40s now. I remembered him as a tall, skinny, quiet kid who was always watching things more than joining in. Michael, I said, surprised. What about him? Well, he's back in the States for a little while. He was supposed to stay with our cousin Martha in Boston while he works on some show details, but Martha's place just had a big pipe break. It flooded the whole guest room. He just called me all worried. Oh no. Is he okay? He's fine. Just basically without a place to stay. He needs somewhere to crash for a couple of weeks, maybe 3 at most. And Ellie, your house popped right into my head. You have that nice spare room since Mark Jr. moved out. And it's quiet and peaceful. Just what he needs to focus. He has a lot to do. I paused for a second. My spare room. Yeah, it was nice. But it was also my special spot, my painting room. The one place in the house that was all mine. Full of canvases and the smell of turpentine and linseed oil. The thought of someone I didn't know well, even Sarah's brother, coming into that space felt a bit weird. Oh, Sarah, I'm not sure. I started. It's just that I'm working on a big painting job right now, and I'm someone who likes things the same way every day. You know that? I know, she said in that coaxing way. And I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. He's super thoughtful, Ellie. Honestly, you'd hardly notice he's there. He's not the crazy kid he used to be, if that's what you're thinking. He's Michael. Quiet, keeps to himself mostly. I thought of him as that gangly teen with a camera always around his neck. It was hard to picture him as a grown man. A couple of weeks, he said. 3 at the absolute most. He just needs a comfort in the storm. Please, Ellie. I'd owe you big time. The thing about Sarah is she doesn't ask for big favors often. And when she does, it's usually for a good reason. I thought about my quiet house, the empty rooms. Maybe a little change wouldn't be so bad. And he was Sarah's brother after all. Almost like family. All right, I said, sighing in a fun, dramatic way, though a small, surprised part of me felt A tiny spark of not exactly excitement, but something different from my usual calm Tuesday morning. He can stay, but if he touches my special sable brushes, he's out on his ear. Sarah squealed with joy. Oh, Ellie, you're a lifesaver. Thank you. Thank you. He'll be so happy. He's driving up from Boston this afternoon. Should be there around 5-ish. I looked around my kitchen, suddenly seeing it like a stranger with the leftover smell of my toast, the messy pile of mail on the table. Wow. Okay, short notice. I know, I'm sorry. It's all kind of last minute. He'll call when he's close. And don't worry, he can order his own food. You don't have to fuss over him. I won't, I said, though part of me was already thinking about what's in my fridge. Old habits. We talked for a few more minutes, Sarah telling me about her latest garden wins before we hung up. I stood there in the quiet, the grandfather clock ticking away. This afternoon, my quiet, easy routine was about to get a new twist. I wasn't sure how I felt about that. A little nervous, sure, but also curious. What would Michael be like after all these years? The quiet watcher, all grown up. I walked into the spare room. It was full of afternoon light, with dust floating. In the sunbeams. My easel was in the corner, with a half-done painting of the Maine coast on it. I'd have to move some stuff around, make space. It felt odd getting this personal room ready for someone I barely knew. I hoped Sarah was right, and he'd be the quiet, thoughtful type that the hours went by in a rush of cleaning and a bit of worry. I put fresh sheets on the guest bed, let some air into the room, and even got some good coffee. Remembering Sarah said Michael was picky about it. Around 4:30, my phone buzzed an unknown number. Hello? Hi, is this Eleanor? A man's voice. Deeper than I thought, with a slight rough edge. Nice sounding. It is. Michael. Yes, hi. Sarah gave me your number. I'm about 20 minutes away. Just wanted to let you know and say thanks again for this. You're really helping me out. It's no problem at all, I said, trying to sound relaxed. Drive safe. See you soon. 20 minutes. I took a deep breath. My heart was doing a funny little jump. Just nerves about having a guest, I told myself. I was standing by the living room window, pretending to read a book when a beat-up dark green Jeep pulled into my driveway. It looked like a car that had been on a lot of bumpy roads. The driver's door opened, and a man got out. He was taller than I remembered, or maybe I was just shorter. Lean, wearing dark jeans and a faded denim shirt with a worn leather bag across. His hair was darker too, more brown than the sandy blonde from when he was young, and shorter, but still a bit wild. He stopped for a moment, looking at the house, his face hard to read from far away. Then he went to the back of the Jeep and pulled out a couple of duffel bags and a big, tough camera case. I opened the front door as he came up the porch steps. Michael? He looked up, and for a second I saw the boy I remembered in his eyes that same thoughtful, watching gaze. But then he smiled, a slow, kind of tired smile that made little lines around his eyes. And the boy was gone, replaced by a handsome man in a rugged, simple way. There were lines on his face that weren't there before, lines from sun and wind and adventures I could only imagine or Eleanor. His voice was even nicer in person. It's been a long time. It sure has, I said, keeping my voice steady. Welcome. Come on in. He stepped inside, bringing a faint smell of something outdoorsy, like pine trees and faraway campfires. It was a strange smell in my super clean hallway. He looked around, his eyes staying on the photos on the wall, the old rug on the shiny wood floor. Your place is beautiful, he said, his voice soft, just like Sarah described. Peaceful. Thank you. I pointed to the stairs. The spare room is upstairs, first door on the left. Let me help with those bags. I've got it, he said, lifting them easily. You've already done more than enough. I followed him up the stairs, suddenly feeling very aware of him in my quiet house. It was like adding a new piece of furniture that didn't quite match, but was interesting anyway. Oh, hi, Michael. Yes, well, no, not really. I waved at the canvas. This wave is beating me. It looks more like a fluffy cloud than a bunch of wild water. He came in more, standing next to me, looking at the painting. He was quiet for a long moment. His forehead wrinkled in thought. I could feel the warmth from his arm near mine. Smell that outdoorsy scent again. It was distracting, but in a nice way. May I? He asked, pointing to the canvas. Please, I said. Any ideas are welcome. He didn't give advice with words. Instead, he picked up a spare charcoal from my tray. On a scrap paper, with a few quick lines, he drew the curve of a wave, the exploding top, the heavy pull down. It was amazing. In less than a minute, he'd caught what I'd been fighting for days. It's about the energy, he said, his voice low. Where it comes from, where it's going, the tension before it breaks. I stared at his drawing, then back at my canvas. Suddenly I saw it. It wasn't just the shape, but the force. Wow, I said. That's super helpful. He put the charcoal down. Sometimes, a fresh view helps. He looked at me, a small smile on his lips. You were close. All the parts are there. That little moment, standing side by side, sharing that art problem, felt important. It was a different kind of connection than our evening talks or meeting. Of creative ideas, an understanding without many words. As he was leaving the studio, he stopped at the door. You know, Eleanor, he said, his back mostly to me. You said you just dabble. You shouldn't sell yourself short. Your work has real heart. His words warmed me more than the sun coming through the window. He left, and I turned back to my canvas with new energy, new clearness. The wave still wasn't perfect, but now I knew how to fix it. And I realized Michael's being here was more than just handy for him or a favor for Sarah. It was becoming important to me. The quiet man with the watching eyes was slowly, surprisingly, bringing back parts of me I thought were gone for good. The house didn't feel so empty anymore. It felt alive. The days kept going, each one marked by the quiet pattern of Michael's being there and our growing, unspoken understanding. We didn't dig into each other's pasts or ask deep questions. Instead, we connected with shared looks over coffee, in the comfy silences in the evenings, in the respect we gave each other's work and space. It was a gentle dance, this surprise friendship, and I started to really value its quiet way. 1. Saturday, the weather was crisp and golden, a perfect fall day. I'd planned to rake leaves, something I usually found relaxing. Michael came out of his room mid-morning, looking a bit fidgety. I need to stretch my legs, he said, running a hand through his messy hair. Too much time on the screen. You going out? Just to the yard to rake leaves, I said, holding the rake. Mind if I help? He asked, surprising me. I could use the fresh air. And besides, he added with a sparkle in his eye, I owe you for about 1,000 cups of coffee by now. I laughed. I wouldn't say no to help. It's a bigger job than it looks. So we spent the next few hours in the yard together. Michael turned out to be really good at raking leaves. We worked side by side, the sound of our rakes matching the rustle of leaves. We didn't talk much, but the shared work was its own way of talking. I found myself watching him sometimes, the easy way he moved, the focused look on his face. Even for a simple job, he seemed different outside, more relaxed, like the open sky and air were where he belonged. When we finished, with 2 huge piles of leaves like golden hills on the grass, We sat on the porch steps, tired but happy. "Thanks, Michael," I said, pushing hair off my forehead. "I haven't done that so fast in years." "My pleasure." He leaned back against the railing, looking at the colourful yard. "It's beautiful here. You've made a real safe spot. It's taken time," I admitted. "This garden has helped me through a lot." I paused, then said, "Mark loved this garden. He really liked those old rose bushes." I pointed to the twisty, thorny bushes by the fence, still holding a few late flowers. It was the most I'd shared about Mark with him. He didn't say anything right away, just looked at the roses, then quietly, "It's good to have things that hold memories. It keeps them close." His understanding was so gentle, so real, that it made it easy to share these bits of my past. I didn't feel like I had to put on a happy face like I do with others. Later that evening, after a simple supper of soup and crusty bread, we were in the living room. I was sketching, and Michael was looking through a book of Ansel Adams photos he'd found on my shelf. He was a master of light, Michael said softly, more to himself. He was, I agreed. There's such a special feeling in his landscapes. Michael closed the book and looked at me, his tone a bit more serious. "Eleanor," he started, "my show opening is in Boston in just under 2 weeks. I was wondering if you're not busy, if you'd think about coming." I looked up surprised. "To your opening?" "Oh, Michael, I don't know. I'd like you to be there," he said, his gaze steady. "Your view, it's become important to me. And," he added with a hint of a smile, "you can tell me honestly if my head's gotten too big." I felt a warmth inside. It was a real invite. Him wanting me there, not just being polite. The idea of going to Boston, seeing his work up, being part of his big moment. It sounded nice. "I'd like that very much, Michael," I said softly. "I'd be honored." His smile got bigger, reaching his eyes. "Good. It's a date then." "Well, not a date," he added quickly, his cheeks a little red. "An event. You know what I mean?" I smiled back. "I know what you mean." But in that moment something changed. The word date, even if he took it back fast, stayed in the air a second too long. It pointed out a line we hadn't talked about, but had. Both been careful around the line between comfy sharing a house and something more. The quiet tension that had always been there in our talks suddenly felt stronger, more real. He cleared his throat and looked back at the Ansel Adams book, though I bet he wasn't really seeing it. I went back to my sketchbook, but my hand shook a little. The air in the cozy living room felt full of unspoken thoughts, with the growing awareness of a connection that was getting deeper in ways we hadn't planned. My best friend's brother, the favor that was turning into so much more. I wondered if Sarah had any idea. Probably not. This was something quiet just between Michael and me, happening in the golden full light of my once empty house. And I realized, with a little surprise, that I wasn't just curious about what came next. I was hopeful. The week before Michael's show went by with a new feeling between us. It wasn't awkward, not really, but we noticed each other more, like a soft spark in me. Talks were still easy, that sometimes our eyes would hold a bit longer, or a quick touch like passing a coffee cup or brushing by in the hall would give me a little thrill. I started caring more about how I looked, picking clothes with thought, even adding a bit of lipstick some mornings. It felt silly for someone my age, but nice, like part of me was waking up. Michael seemed different too. He was still busy with prep, but lighter, almost like a kid when he talked about the last details. He showed me the catalogue pages, his name big on the front. There was a quiet pride that was sweet, excited, building to the event. The day of the opening came. A bright, chilly Saturday. Michael was up early, walking around, full of nervous energy. "You sure you still want to do this?" he asked as I came down for breakfast, dressed in a new silk blouse I'd bought for it and smart black pants. It's probably going to be full of artsy people, a lot of fancy talk. I wouldn't miss it, I said firmly, pouring coffee. And I'm excited to see you in your world. Besides, I added with a tease, someone needs to make sure you don't hide in a corner all night. He smiled. You know me too well. We drove to Boston in his Jeep. We talked on and off, mixing his nerves with my tries to calm him. He'd picked a dark grey suit, no tie, which made him look sharp and even more handsome. I felt a warm flutter, like he was mine in some way. Thinking of walking into the gallery with him. Vivid, like, the gallery was in a cool fixed-up warehouse area, with brick walls and smooth concrete floors. Even before we went in, I could see through the big windows it was crowded. Music and talking. Spilled out to the street. Michael took a deep breath as he turned off the engine. Well, here goes nothing. Here goes everything, I said gently. This is your moment, Michael. Enjoy it. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine. Thanks for being here, Eleanor. It means more than you know. He reached across the seats, and for a second I thought he'd take my hand. Instead, his fingers brushed my arm lightly, a quick touch that gave me shivers. Come on, he said, his voice a bit rough. Let's face the music. Walking into the gallery was like entering a new world. The white walls had Michael's photos, lit up beautifully and shown off well. They were even stronger in person. Big prints that pulled you in. I saw ones he'd shown me on his laptop, but lots of new ones too, each with a deep story. People were everywhere, with wine glasses, chatting lively. Right away, Michael got pulled away by a curator, then a reporter, then friends. I stepped back, happy to watch. I saw Sarah across the room, smiling big with pride, and waved. She came over, giving me a big hug. Ellie, you made it. Isn't this amazing? My little brother, a real art star. It's wonderful, Sarah, I said, really impressed. The photos are breathtaking. And you look great, she said, eyeing me. Having Michael around seems good for you. There was a knowing look in her eye that made me blush a bit. He's been an easy guest, I said quickly. Sarah just smiled. Of course he has. I spent the next hour or so walking through the show, really getting into Michael's work. I saw landscapes that talked of being alone and huge beauty, portraits that showed people's strength and pride. Each photo was a window into his heart, how he saw the world, and I felt a strong connection to him, understanding him deeper through his art than words could do. I stood a long time in front of one photo. It was a quiet one, not as dramatic as others. It was a shot of an old, worn wooden door in a crumbling stone wall, maybe in a Mediterranean village. A single red geranium bloomed in a pot next to it. There was something about the light and shadows, the textures, the feeling of history and hidden stories in that doorway that grabbed me. It spoke of home, of moving forward, of beauty in surprise places. That one's a bit different from the others. Isn't it? Michael's voice right behind me made me jump a little. He'd gotten away from the crowd. It's my favorite, I said, turning to him. It's hopeful and so beautiful. He looked at the photo, then at me. His face was soft, his eyes warm, like just for me. I took that in a small village in Crete. I was there for weeks trying to catch the spirit of the place, and I kept coming back to this doorway. It felt like an invitation. He paused, then said lower, kind of like showing up on your doorstep a few weeks ago. My breath stopped. The gallery noise talking, music faded away. It was just Michael, his strong gaze and the unspoken feeling. Between us, it was an unexpected invitation, I managed, my voice a whisper. The best ones often are, he said. He stepped closer. The space between us felt alive, charge. I could smell his clean cologne mixed with that Michael scent, the outdoors and campfire one I'd gotten used to. Eleanor, he started. And I knew, just knew, this was a big moment, the top of all those quiet evenings, shared coffees, silent understandings. He reached out, and this time his fingers didn't just brush my arm. They found my hand, his thumb gently rubbing my knuckles. It was a simple touch, but it felt deep, electric. I know this is sudden, maybe, he said, his eyes on mine. And I know I'm just your best friend's brother who needed a place to crash. But these past few weeks, being with you, talking with you, it's been a revelation. Eleanor. My heart was pounding hard. I couldn't talk, could only look at him, hoping my eyes showed what I felt. I haven't felt this connected to someone in a very long time. He went on, his voice honest and low, just for me. Maybe ever. I know my life is complicated, always moving, and yours is settled here. But he took a deep breath. When this show is done, when things calm, I was wondering if maybe you'd be open to exploring this, whatever this is between us. There it was, the question, the chance. My mind spun, but my heart felt calm, sure. This quiet, watching man who'd come into my life by surprise had seen me. Really seen me, like no one had in years. He'd woken up a part of me I thought was lost. The gallery sounds came back slowly. Someone called Michael's name. He looked over his shoulder, a bit annoyed, then back at me, his face urgent, asking. I squeezed his hand. Yes, Michael, I said, my voice clear now, stronger. Yes, I would. A slow smile spread on his face, full of real relief and joy that made my heart happy. It was a smile that promised new starts, surprise trips. In the middle of the busy gallery, surrounded by his life's work, we stood in our own quiet bubble. A silent promise between us. The favor he'd needed had led to something much deeper. A real emotional connection, like the hopeful doorway in the photo. The future was unsure, but for the first time in ages, I felt excited about what might come. The rest of the evening went by in a warm, happy blur. Michael was busy, as expected, but his eyes kept finding mine across the room, sharing little smiles, quiet promises. I talked more with Sarah, who I now thought had probably guessed something was happening between us. Her winks and subtle questions made sense now. She seemed really happy. Her love for me and her brother clear. When the crowd started to leave, Michael came back to me. He looked tired but thrilled. Ready to go? He whispered, his hand finding mine again, this time weaving fingers together in a way that felt natural and wonderful new. Whenever you are, I said, my heart skipping happily at the easy closeness. We said goodbyes. Michael thanking the gallery owner and last guests. Out into the cool night with him felt different. Before, we were Eleanor and Michael, sharing a house by chance. Now, holding hands, there was a sense of us. A new team. A shared path just starting. The drive back to my house was quiet, but a happy, content quiet that didn't need words. Michael reached over and squeezed my hand on the console. When we got to my driveway, he turned off the engine but didn't get out. The dashboard lights glowed softly on his face, showing the tired lines around his eyes but also the gentle smile. Thank you again for tonight, Eleanor, he said softly. For everything. It was my pleasure, Michael. Your work is incredible. You should be very proud. I am, he said. But I'm more grateful for this. He waved between us. For your willingness to see where this might go. I smiled. I'm grateful too. He leaned in then, slowly, giving me time to move. If I wanted, I didn't. My eyes went to his lips for a quick second before back to his eyes. His hand came up to cut my cheek, his thumb stroking softly, and then he kissed me. It wasn't a big movie kiss. It was gentle, tender, a soft exploring. It tasted of wine and hope and the promise of something new. It was a kiss that spoke of respect, of a deep emotional connection that had built quietly for weeks. When he pulled back a bit, his forehead rested on mine for a moment. "Wow," he breathed, a small, shaky laugh. "Wow," I said back, feeling a warmth that wasn't from the car heat. We stayed like that for a bit, just breathing each other in, the close feeling of the kiss wrapping around us. There were no big words, no wild feelings. There didn't need to be. What we had was quieter, deeper, matching the beat of our lives now, not like years ago. "I should let you rest," he said finally, though he didn't let go. Probably I agreed, though I didn't want the moment to end. He walked me to the door, his hand lightly on my back. At the door, under the soft porch light, he stopped. "My flight to set up the next part of the show tour isn't for another week," he said. "I was thinking maybe we could spend some of that time together, not just as people sharing a house." "I'd like that very much," I said, my voice full of a warmth I hadn't felt in years. "We could go to that old bookstore in Portsmouth you mentioned, or finally take that walk along the cliffs I keep talking about." His eyes brightened. "Perfect." He leaned down and kissed me again, a little firmer this time, a sweet yes. "Good night, Eleanor." "Good night, Michael." I watched him walk back to his Jeep, then heard the engine start and him drive away. He was staying in a Boston hotel for a couple nights to handle after-show stuff before coming back to my place for his last week. I stepped inside, my house feeling both empty and full. Empty without him right there, but full of the leftover warmth of his touch. His kiss, the amazing promise of what's ahead. I touched my fingers to my lips, smiling. My best friend's brother. Who could have guessed a simple favor would lead to this? Life, I thought, sure has a way of surprising you, often when you least expect it. The next week was like a dream. Michael came back, and we got into an easy way of being together that now had a gentle romance. We took that cliff walk, wind messing our hair, the big ocean in front like the chances ahead. We checked out the old bookstore, finding we liked the same writers, laughing as we read bad poems to each other. We cooked simple meals that tasted great because we made them together with joy. There were more kisses, tender and curious, getting deeper but always respectful, knowing it was new. We talked for hours, sharing past stories, hopes for what's next. I learned about the loneliness in his traveling life, the wish for a real home. He learned about the quiet sadness I still had for Mark, but also the strength I'd found, the life I'd rebuilt. There was no rush, no big expectations of a fast romance. We were two people in the middle of life, with histories, finding a surprise connection that felt special and deep. It was about being friends as much as the spark, about respecting and understanding each other. The day he had to leave for his next show thing in Chicago came too soon. Our goodbye at the airport was sweet and sad. "This isn't goodbye, though," he said, holding my hands, his gaze serious. "It's just see you later. A very soon see you later." "I know," I said, my throat tight with feeling. "Chicago isn't that far. And after Chicago, there's Santa Fe. Maybe you could come there. We could explore the desert together." The invite was bright with promise. "I'd love that, Michael." He kissed me then, a long, lingering kiss that spoke of promises and future fun. "I'll call you tonight," he said against my lips. "I'll be waiting." I watched him head to his gate, that familiar leather bag across his chest. But now he wasn't just Sarah's brother, the quiet photographer. He was Michael, The man who'd walked into my life and reminded me that surprise connections can be the best. That finding yourself can happen anytime. And that close feelings built on respect and sharing. Weak spots are a treasure. Walking back to my car, I felt peaceful, quietly joyful. My house would be emptier again, but not like before. Now it would be full of happy memories and waiting for him to come back, for new adventures together. The rhythm of my life had changed, but it was richer, more full now. And I was so grateful for that surprise favor and everything that came after. The fall leaves were still bright, but now they seemed even more beautiful, like the unexpected fall romance that had grown in my own life. And I knew with a warm certainty that this was just the start of a new chapter.